Hi everybody, Dana Shoaf, editor of Civil War Times Magazine, back with Melissa Wynn, director of photography, and Jake Wynn, our friend from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. We have walked to what, during the Civil War, was the southern outskirts of Frederick town. Their development that is around us was not here at the time, but this magnificent stone building behind me was. This is called the Hessian Barracks. Originally, there were two buildings built like this that have this little corner or L in them. This is the surviving east wing of the barracks. There was a matching west wing that was torn down in the 1870s. These buildings, as the name indicates, were built by German prisoners during the Revolutionary War. And just really to give you a sense of how warfare has changed and how odd things to our taste were, the Hessians that lived here were really welcomed in the community and often worked at town. Some of them actually joined the Continental Army to get out of being prisoners. And those that remained prisoners, their salaries were still sent through the lines by the British payroll system based in Philadelphia. So even though they're prisoners, they have, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's relatively, a good place if you're a prisoner anyway. But they're magnificent buildings. And as time went on from the Revolutionary War, of course, these remained, and this large open ground around it was used as the county and the town fairgrounds. They had horse races out here. Big militia musters were held out here. There's a really cool engraving of one of those taking place here during the pre-Civil War period in Frederick. And this structure, the two of them that were here at the time, are going to be really important hospitals in Frederick. This was considered General Hospitals #1, and it was one of the first places, when I mentioned Nathaniel Banks in our first broadcast, the first Union General to come here and start establishing hospital sites. This is where he begins, here at the barracks in this location. And as Jake is going to tell us in a second, it was built onto throughout the war and added onto. But before we begin that, Jake, tell me a little bit, and you want to take your mask down, that's fine. I think we're far enough apart here. Tell me a little bit.
It has my logo on.
Yeah, I know. Right. So how long have you been director of interpretation at the museum?
So I've worked at the museum. I've been director of interp for coming up on 3 years.
Okay.
I've been with the museum since 2013.
Okay.
I started working when I was an undergraduate at Hood College here in Frederick.
And where is it located in Frederick, the main museum?
Right in the heart of downtown, 48 East Patrick Street.
Okay.
Historic 1830s building.
Yeah, and you guys also have a satellite location on the Antietam battlefield.
Yes, the Pry House Field Hospital Museum, which is opened and run in conjunction with the National Park Service.
Cool. Right now the museum's closed because of the spike in COVID here in the region. Mm-hmm. But normally you're open for visitation, and you have, how many, 2 floors of exhibits?
Yes, we have two floors of exhibit here in Frederick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And some really rare items related to hospitals and medical treatment during the Civil War. Mm-hmm. So what's the website for your museum?
Yes, it's civilwarmed.org.
Okay.
I will also put in, at the end of the video, I'll put in the link in the comments section, so you'll be able to find that there in just a bit.
And I know, I want to mention this, you guys are undergoing a capital campaign right now?
Yeah, so we have a fundraising campaign that is called our Support Hope Through History campaign. We're looking to raise $25,000. Pandemic's been bad for the museum business. Mm-hmm. So we have, we've fared pretty well comparatively to a lot of other institutions.
Good.
But there is, we're trying to make up for some of the lost revenue from 2020.
And I should mention your other satellite location is the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers Office. Geez, I almost forgot that. And we were there in March. Jake took us through that really unique location where Clara worked after the war to help try to find, reunite families with their loved ones that were buried across.
Gosh, was that March? That was right before all of
right before.
Yeah, that was the last one we did.
Yeah, so you guys,
4 times.
It's a great museum, and check them out. They got this capital campaign, so subscribe to Civil War Times, and then go on and then help the Civil War Museum.
I'll drop a link at the end of when we get off of the video with the link to the fundraising campaign.
And then before we let you roll here, I don't know, Melissa, can you turn to your left? I don't know, you probably can't pick up the Catoctin mountain range out there. I don't know if people could see it or not. But anyway, getting back to our first broadcast, Frederick kind of grows up because it's right before the first major mountain range when you leave the eastern seaboard, literally. The land is pretty flat, it slowly gets ridgier, and then the first major mountain range you have is the Catoctin Range. This is a good place for people to stop before they headed further west, the beginnings of the whole town in the 18th century. But why don't you go ahead and tell us more about the expansion of the Hessian Barracks during the Civil War?
Yeah, so the barracks is constructed, original construction starts in 1777. It's going to be used during the American Revolution. It's going to have lots of purposes, as Dana has mentioned. But when the Civil War breaks out in 1861, because this is the fairgrounds, because this has a long history with militias, the barracks buildings are going to play a role in the initial, beginnings of the Civil War, with having troops here. They're going to camp here, and ultimately they're going to set up a hospital here when Nathaniel P. Banks comes into this region with about 10,000 soldiers under his command. Many of those soldiers are going to become ill due to a variety of illnesses, and they need a place to be treated. And so this building already had a military purpose, is going to be turned into a hospital complex. As the war goes on, and more soldiers come to Frederick, this hospital is going to grow. It's going to start out with these two buildings, and then they're going to start adding, taking up the former parade ground, which, if you want to turn around over here, this whole, what is now the Maryland School for the Deaf campus, including all of those buildings out there and another block worth of homes and private buildings. All of this was a flat parade ground, perfectly suitable for constructing a hospital. And so they start adding hospital wards that are going to stretch out over this ground all the way to up Market Street, right on the main entrance into Frederick. This is going to be a scene of drama in September of 1862, which we've been talking a lot about the drama in Frederick at that time. Because this is on the southern side of the city, this is going to be the first location in Frederick that is going to be occupied by the Confederates. So they're going to come in here. The medical authorities, the Union medical authorities, had about 500 patients here in early September of 1862. Dr. Robert Weir, was the surgeon in charge. He evacuated about 400 of those patients north into Pennsylvania ahead of the Confederates, but there were about 100 to 150 patients who couldn't be moved, who were then captured and paroled by the Confederates. Confederate Army, as they arrive here, they're going to drop off about 500 of their own sick and wounded before they march out of here and leave them behind. So this hospital ends up being filled up. And then more patients are going to come in courtesy of the battle at South Mountain and Antietam, which I think you have an account from Engelbrecht about what he saw.
Actually, this is an account.
Or is that from Monocacy?
Monocacy.
It's from Monocacy. Okay, so we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah, sure.
So flash forward, this hospital continues to expand. It goes from basically these two buildings to 8 wards in 1862. They add on 3 more in early 1863. By the time we get to the Gettysburg Campaign, and then ultimately into 1864, the hospital has grown to its kind of full size, which is going to include more than 30 buildings, including about a dozen hospital wards, with other buildings for other purposes, including a storeroom, a kitchen, rooms for the hospital guards, because there was a fence built around this to keep both the patients in and the people from outside out. And so they needed a place to sleep. And then in 1864, Confederates do return here, and there aren't too many patients here in the hospital, but by that time, in July of 1864, when the Confederates arrived, Dr. Weir estimates that there are about 2,500 to 3,000 beds available in this hospital. So you can see how much it's grown from these two buildings to room for 2,500 to 3,000 patients, which is very well timed, and good that that was available, because almost all of the wounded from the Battle of Monocacy are going to be brought into this hospital, and they don't need to expand out to any of the other hospitals that were used in 1862. So like the Lutheran Church, the Old Episcopal Church that we visited earlier, none of those sites are going to be used in 1864 because this hospital has been built to have that capacity.
It's quite greatly enlarged. And throughout his diary, Engelbrecht mentions the Barracks Hospital quite a bit. And I didn't actually copy it down, but he mentions, sick guys being put in here before any major battles. You know, that there's sick soldiers housed out at the barracks. 1864 is another momentous year for the city of Frederick. I mean, my goodness, this town has experienced heavy war association in 62 and 63, and in 1864, of course, in the summer, Confederate General Jubal Early is going to move up the Shenandoah Valley, move northward, and then hook through Maryland, through Frederick to try to threaten D.C., does threaten D.C. from the north. We showed you some of the forts that protected the city not long ago on our first Monday broadcast. But he ransoms the city of Frederick in 1864 for about $200,000, which is paid. And in today's money, that's over $3 million. So the city is ransomed in 1864, and then there is this one last engagement, the Battle of Monocacy, which we could almost see the battlefield, I think, if it wasn't for the development. It's only about a mile and a half south of us.
It's not far at all.
Very close, where the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad spur left to run up to the town. Engelbrick writes in his diary, let me get the date here, which is on the following page. Excuse me, just to help give it a little bit of interest. July 11th, 1864, he writes this in his diary. Down at Monocacy Junction, they had a battle, and a goodly number were killed and wounded on both sides. At the barracks yesterday, behind me here, I saw at least 500 rebel wounded and also prisoners. Many had limbs amputated. I saw one operation of the amputation of the left leg of a Union soldier by Dr. Weir of United States Hospital. It took about 20 minutes. So maybe there was a fence, but Engelbrick had some, some kind of connection.
Oh, he
had
connections.
Yeah, he was sort of a local, I don't want to say busybody, that's not the right word, but everybody knew Jacob Engelbrick. And so he got in to watch this operation here, this amputation, and documented it in his diary. So
it is pretty common, surprisingly, that medical operations were oftentimes being viewed by people who would be coming to visit the hospital and say, hey, come see the latest techniques we have. Which I will say, since we're talking about amputations and I work for the museum, 95% of surgeries done during the Civil War are done under some form of anesthesia. Chloroform or ether are both used widely, almost universally during the Civil War. So I'll just throw that out there. But it wasn't just surgeries. From our building in downtown Frederick, where the museum is located, was an embalming station during the Civil War. And they were doing public viewings of embalming. So if you wanted to go and see the embalmer embalm the body of a soldier, that was something you could do for entertainment. And the embalmer actually collected a fee to come and see it. So
not necessarily the way we would look at things.
No, not at all the way
we would handle it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I think Jake mentioned we are on the grounds of the Maryland School for the Deaf, I believe is the correct term. And so they maintain this building, which is fantastic. Some people consider this among the most important early military architectural structures in the United States. It was so early, built by the United States for military purposes. So anyway, we have experienced the batteries kind of quickly. The chill in the air may have something to do with the batteries moving quickly. We're going to try to get you one more video. We're going to do 3. We're going to try to do one more where we're on this side of town. So we're going to wrap it up now, and then if we have battery power, we'll say hi to everybody at our next stop. But for now, we're just going to wrap it up here and try to get you within just a couple minutes, really, I think, right, to get there, okay? So this is Dana Shoaf again, and Melissa Wynn for Civil War Times, our good friend Jake Wynn from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine, and we hope to see you in just a few minutes. Thanks.